Welcome into Georgia High School Sports Daily, powered by IBEW Local 613 from the Breda Pest Management Sports Desk. Alongside Craig Sager, I'm Georgia Chambers. We have a great show to get to today. We're going to be previewing our game of the week, but before we get to that, we're going to start with our fast break headlines, and we want to share the love a little bit because we've been talking a lot about football, but let's open it up with some softball programs that are doing really well across the state. Starting off with Eastside Softball's Lauren Brown. She threw a new no-hitter and hits a home run versus Cedar Shoals. Now, this was a 15-0 victory, and when you look at Eastside, they're 2-0 in the season, 1-0 in the region, and they're going to play Morgan County tonight at 4:30.
Yeah, huge game. And so they're only 2 games into the season, but it's the way Eastside's been able to win. They had a 6-0 shutout over Northgate and then opened their region. This is the game we just highlighted against Cedar Shoals. This is a 15-0 ever pitch. Pretty incredible. 40 pitches, 8 strikeouts, 9 batters faced, and she got it done on the plate. So you can't really start a season better than that.
And Craig, we were talking with softball pitchers. They can go from playing a game like the day before into a next matchup, play the full game. They don't necessarily need that as much rest as you would see with like baseball pitchers. How much of an impact does it make to have somebody like Lauren Brown on their team?
Oh, it's huge. And that's actually one of the most exciting things to me about each year, the SEC softball tournament. My best friend growing up, Adam Schick, covered the Florida Gators. We're Georgia fans, but it's okay for this. And he told me that they had a pitcher named Stacy Nelson, was one of the best pitchers on the team, and then she would just go every single game, and it was so unbelievable to me. When you think about the pitch count, and in baseball, a lot of times you're only going to throw a pitcher out there 1 game in a 3-game series, but then in softball, if you have an ace, they're going to lead you the entire season.
Well, and not only on defense, but as offense as well. We saw her rack up a home run. And then moving along to our second headline, sticking with softball, another standout player in the state is Leah Bird of North Cobb. She helped lead them to 6-0. She's an Auburn softball commit, and not only did she strike out 12, she went 2 for 4 with a homer and a double. It really makes her impact known early on this season.
Yeah, look at this opposite field home run right here, and then we'll get into just how impressive her stats have been. See right over the right field line. Boom.
It's gone.
It is gone. She's so fast also. So North Cobb is off to a 6-0 start now, undefeated. More importantly, they're 3-0 in their region. This is a team that fell to Buford last year, really deep in the playoffs, and I think has a chance to contend with the East Cowetas and Buford. They had a chance last year, but if you look at softball, who are the teams in Georgia that have been ranked #1 nationally over the last 5 years? It's Buford and East Cowetas. So they are the teams to beat. But the way she's been getting it done on the mound, the complete game, and then at the plate, you saw the home run right there against Etowah. This was to open the region last Thursday. 3 for 4 in game 1. She had 2 more hits in game 2. And then against Walton in region play, the 5-3 victory. That was where it's a much closer game, but she was 2 for 4 at the plate with 3 RBIs, and they did pitch the complete game. She's going to be going to Auburn, and they're getting a heck of a player.
As North Cobb continues in this region play, which will go up against some tough teams, as you mentioned, what's keys for them to stay consistent and build on this momentum?
Yeah, well, they definitely have found their depth. I think it's just working the batting lineup a little bit. Because, I mean, in softball, the field's so small. It's like you got to have the base runners on the same page. You got to be able to work that lineup. So maybe some tweaks in the lineup moving forward, but they have a lot of hitters getting it done, and defense is obviously huge. That's going to carry them a long way.
Moving on to our fast break headlines, we have another women's sport that we want to highlight, some volleyball. Pope vs. Alpharetta is taking place tonight at 5:30, and this is a matchup that is going to be one for the books. Alpharetta is ranked nationally. They're #7 in Sports Illustrated's top 25 girls high school volleyball in the preseason. Alpharetta is 12-1 overall, Pope 8-2 overall, and Pope and Walton had that showcase outdoors that they played, generated a lot of excitement. But these are 2 really good programs that are going to be going head-to-head tonight.
Yes, I saw these 2 teams face. This was 2 seasons ago in the state championships over in Cartersville. Pope had beaten Alpharetta throughout the entire season, and then Alpharetta just had a very dominant team effort. They got the victory, and since then, Alpharetta has been the team to beat. They ran the table last year, didn't lose a single match, only dropped a few sets. But then this year, they have stumbled. They lost to Cartersville. That was probably a week and a half ago. They've won 6 straight. Well, now you look at Pope. Pope also lost to Cartersville, but then they lost that outdoor match. So each of them has a loss to a common opponent. They're well familiar with each other. They both have won state championships in the last 2 years. Pope, the defending champ, Alpharetta, the defending champ. This is really going to tell me which team has made progress since some early hiccups.
And when you have these great matchups so early on in the season, what do you think it means for both teams to face these opponents so early on?
It's huge, and that's what's really interesting. We'll get into it in the volleyball rankings breakdown. These teams are loading the front end of their schedule, just playing tons of ranked teams, where a team like Pace Academy, a team like Woodward, they're only 1 or 2 matches into their season. Alpharetta is already 12-1, so they're in mid-season form. They're ready to go, and that's going to benefit them later. Another interesting thing about this matchup, you have a lot of girls that have gotten scholarship opportunities, but also a lot of girls that play travel volleyball that are familiar with each other, maybe even playing on the same team, will now be going up against each other.
Moving on to our next fast break headline. So this past weekend was the first weekend of the high school football season, and Georgia had 30 first-year football coaches who won their first games last week. On your screen, you're seeing a full list of these coaches. A handful of these coaches, Craig, actually played in the Corky Kell Dave Hunter Classic. Who jumps out to you of this list as one of the ones you're most excited to see lead these teams this season?
Well, what's interesting about the Corky, so you had Hebron Christian, Cedar Grove, Prince Ave, and then, oh man, Coach Smits, he almost swept the table with first-year head coach of St. Pius getting the victory over Dunwoody, who fell just short. I think there's a lot of interesting ones. Nelson Stewart of Westminster, that is probably the biggest statement win because they went against Lovett. This is a huge rivalry, the Battle of Buckhead. You're a new coach taking over for a legend in Jerry Romberg, who's been there for, I think, 30 years. And then you come in and you beat the biggest rival week 1, a huge victory for Nelson Stewart, and great momentum for Westminster moving forward because we know how tough that region is with Kell, BT, Cambridge, and Centennial.
I wanted to give Pace Academy's head coach Sean Weatherspoon a shout out. He's somebody that's very well known throughout Atlanta, played for the Falcons. He's somebody that I had a chance to meet when I had worked with Fox 5, and he's somebody that you love to see him come in and already start to make an impact. Obviously, he has a lot of knowledge throughout his career and what he was able to do, so it's nice to see that continuity continue with Pace Academy.
Absolutely, and last season was a disappointing year for Pace. They've had a few of them. Since Pace Academy won the state title, they've not made it out of the first round. I think it's like 8 straight first-round exits, but last year their offense was really poor. I think they averaged maybe 12 points a game, so they look better on both sides of the ball. Sean Weatherspoon's a defensive guy, but he has his staff in place, and that was a huge win just to get them that positive momentum.
When you see names like Sean Weatherspoon and Cedar Grove head coach Richard Freeman, who came from Morehouse, what impact does it have to have coaches that have higher experience at the next levels do to coach high school football?
Yeah, so we get a good blend in Georgia. You have the coaches that came from the college ranks, guys like Kareem Reed at McEacher now. You have other guys that have come through coaching trees. I think Johnny White has one of the biggest coaching trees at Douglas County, guys that have come on. But the reason that is Georgia has the most competitive coaching market in the state. They pay their coaches more than a lot of the surrounding states. The community support is there, and there's a reason why Georgia attracts state championship coaches from all over. So that's why it's such an enticing place for them to coach. And a guy like Coach Freeman coming from Morehouse, that was another great move. We've seen what he's been able to bring to Cedar Grove.
Well, congrats to all of those 30 coaches who picked up their first win in their respective programs. Last but certainly not least, let's head to the last fast break headline. Georgia has the second most amount of prospects in the 2028 Rivals Top 100 rankings with 13 prospects. And if you look at the graphic on your screen, I think it's really interesting to note that the only state that has more is California. And when you think of the size of California, even Texas, the fact that Georgia has more standout players than Texas is impressive.
Yeah, I mean, if you think about it, so there's 100 names. Florida, that's 1 in 5 players on this list are playing in Florida. Georgia was at 1 in 9 out of the 100, and these are really quality guys, some of the highest rated anywhere in this list. But even Casey Barner, he's listed as number 37 out of 100. I think he's going to rise significantly. So when it's all said and done, some more players might enter this top 100, but I also see some of these guys crack in the top 10.
Correction, that was Florida, not California. If you can't tell, I have my glasses on today. The vision is not doing well for me. But again, this generates so much excitement. We've been talking through the preseason list going into the season, and this is something to watch too, because that Casey Barner, we've talked about it enough, but really exciting, as of all of the guys on the list as well. Craig, it's making for a really exciting season.
Yep, and it's just always great to familiarize yourself with these up-and-coming classes. They're really great. I even saw some players at Corky that were heading into middle school that were there that have already gotten scouts. I mean, there's some really great young talent in this state.
Don't go anywhere just yet. Coming up after the break, we're going to be previewing the Collins Hill Woodward Academy matchup that's coming up on Friday. We'll hear from both head coaches on today's show. You won't want to miss it.
Nobody wants to hear the word roaches, because who wants to admit they have roaches?
I actually found some weird roaches. I didn't know what they were. I decided to choose Breda. I reached out to them. They check in routinely. They're explaining what they're doing, so there's a lot of clarity in the process as well. I think that just speaks to the level of safety that I feel with the organization.
The facts are, roaches are everywhere in our environment. So what are you doing to keep them out of your home?
Breda, Breda, no need to be afraid of bugs.
Great teams are committed, focused on the details, and work hard to be their best. From practice to games, right down to their gear. Your field is a critical part of the game that allows your athletes to showcase their athletic abilities. Sports Turf is committed to bringing your team innovative sports surfaces with unparalleled performance. You bring the vision. Our team brings it to life.
This makes my dad proud. He went through his whole career as an employee. Now I'm the employer, something he didn't achieve.
We are signatory to IBEW and do IBEW people wherever we go that we feel like they are faster and better than any of our competition.
The advantages of being a signatory contractor is you're trained employees. You have unlimited manpower. It allows me to bid on jobs that I ordinarily would not go after.
Man, you know how to do this? Man, I don't even know. I was flipping burgers last week.
Violation, unsportsmanlike conduct, impersonating a craftsman.
Skilled trade unions are well-trained career pros, not part-timers. Construction is a rewarding and lucrative career with the advancement potential, but you have to do it the right way with the right training. Learn how you can be a pro. Find your career at GeorgiaConstructionCareers.com.
Georgia High School Sports Daily is brought to you by the International Brotherhood of Electrical Workers, Local 613. Electrify your career. And by Breda Pest Management. They handle bugs and critters.
Welcome back to Georgia High School Football Media Day. Right now we have Collins Hill on the stage with head coach Drew Swick. Coach Swick, it seems like you guys have really established your identity since you took over. You guys know what you want to do on both sides of the football. You've been able to take those steps of improvement. What excites you about this upcoming year?
I got a great group of young men behind me, as you can see. You know, we brought every single one of them up here. You know, my coach staff is unbelievable as well. And, you know, everything that we talk about is being great at everything we do. And, you know, the past 3 years we've been building something special. And, you know, the past 2 years we've also been beaten by the state champs. And, you know, we talked about going 15-0, 1-0 each year, each week as well. And, you know, I couldn't do what we do, you know, without the coach staff, now with these players behind us. But we got a great group of young men, you know, great support from our AP, admin, teachers, everybody up in the building. And, you know, when you got something special like that, you can do great things in a program.
Just talk about the team's ability to
go into these tough matches and just believe in themselves?
Yeah, we don't fear anybody. Asked the team last year, 2 years ago, who they wanted to schedule, and first name that came out of their mouth was Grayson, and one of those teams that is the top. They want to stay champ, and if you want to be the best, you got to beat the best. And I think we've seen some really good talent in our non-region and also in our region. But our kids put in the hard work in the weight room. They put it in the classroom. We challenge them every single day, and we push them to their limits. And when we get out there on Fridays, the practice that we do is a little bit easier than what we kind of see. So.
And then obviously you guys have another tough schedule this year. So what's the philosophy of going into it knowing that each of these games can prepare you for the next?
Yeah, again, playing the best teams early on, like our non-region was set up 2 years ago, and we looked at the schedule, we looked at the teams that we had played in the past that had also beaten us, 2 or 3 years in a row, and we got our get back last year, but every one of those teams has a circle on their schedule this year, and they're not overlooking Collinsville, and that's what we've been talking about all summer, and the kids have been putting in that work, but again, you play those hard teams in the beginning. Once you get to the playoffs, it becomes easier versus now you're playing a tough team that you haven't played all season.
How fired up is your team to play the defending state champions in Grayson to kick off the season?
Yeah, it's what fueled us last year, in the summer going into, week one. But, you're playing Grayson, you're playing state champs. They got a great coach staff. They got great players, just like we do. And, that's the home opener, and you don't lose it, at home. So that's what we've kind of been fueling us all summer long. And, we've had a great, successful summer. We've done 7-on-7s and won 2 of the 3. And, we just want to continue to bring that success into the season.
And then you guys made the quarterfinal round of the playoffs for the first time since 2021 when Collinsville won the state championship. How confident are you entering this season?
Yeah, we returned 7 to 8 starters on both sides. We got our kicker, Philip Bonacci, coming back, who does punting and kicking. And, it's just kind of you reload in a sense. So, we've had a bunch of guys step up at receiver, DB, offensive line, defensive line, and we got both of our quarterbacks coming back. And, those two are great leaders, and they have different abilities, strengths, and weaknesses. But, we're going to use both of those guys and get every single player that we can playing time because they've been putting in that hard work. Because we want to, grow that 1, 2, 3 deep.
And what can you say about this defense you've got?
Yeah, the defense is unbelievable right now. They're further along than they have, they were last year with some of those guys. We got guys that have been starting since they were freshmen, and guys that have been starting since they were sophomores. So you got a ton of veterans on this team, and a ton of leaders, like we said. And anybody that's joined or came in or is new to football, whatever, they've been the standard and the role models for those kids, and really showed them the way.
And then you're talking about just what an impressive group you have, but you've been with them now for a few years. So how have you seen them learn lessons throughout the last season and also be able to step up and be the guys this year?
Yeah, so, talking about Catrell Webb behind me, he's one of those kids. Kingston Fitzhugh and Deuce Jarrows have all been starters since they were freshmen. I've watched them grow. We've helped them develop, as not just players but as men, and teaching them the right things to do, up in the building when you're outside of football, inside your community, because all that matters. But really the big thing is the small things. High school kids forget about the small things, but those are the most important things that will, ultimately lose you a game or win you a game at the end. And, with that group of bunch, the leaders that we have in this senior class, there's a lot of them. And, they've been listening for the past 3 years, and now they say the same thing that we've been saying, since this tenure. And, very excited to get into the season. And, we get after it at practice every single day, and we're just ready to get started. We're itching.
And the defense really, it's lived up to it every single season. I feel like the last few years, people around the state, we talked to them, man, that Collinsville defense, that defensive line, that was a huge part of the state championship run also. But what is it about practice, just their consistency and ability to improve and live up to that standard?
Yeah, Coach Beck, defense coordinator, Corey Beck, has been doing an unbelievable job, since I took over as head coach, and he was the perfect guy for that. And then you got all the assistants behind, him, and then offensive coordinator Nathan Kerner. You got two leaders at that helm that bring everybody together, behind me, and had the same vision and goal. But, one thing that our players allow us to do is coach them hard. And, we build relationships with our players, but they'll run through a brick wall, because we've been doing it with some of these guys since, their freshman year, sophomore year. But, we coach them hard, and they get after it, and they want to be the best. You got the Travis Hunters, but, they don't call themselves Travis Hunter no more. It's Collinsville, and, they want to make their own dynasty and destiny this year and keep moving forward.
How important is the leadership role on this team for your players?
Very, very crucial. My first year we went 5-7, And, we were able to beat a good North Cobb team, at their home, and then we lost to Milton. And then the next year, we just keep getting better and better. Last year we had maybe 6, 7 guys that would talk. Now, it's seniors all the way down to freshmen that have that confidence to come up there and talk in front of their team. And it may not, something that he says may not apply to somebody else, but, it may apply to somebody out there. And, we talk about not shooting anybody down that comes up, because that can take their confidence away. And I've seen kids just grow tremendously because they've been allowed to do that.
And then, Coach, you got a ton of players behind you, but how about 2 guys that just have really been setting that standard in the leadership role that you want to highlight? Maybe we'll hear from.
Yeah, 2 guys behind me that we are going to let talk if possible is Stephen Bargelow, who's representing the defense, and Atticus Joseph. And those are 2 guys that are part of the Leadership Council, high GPAs. We're talking 4.1s, 3.9s, and, got great opportunities to go play college football. Atticus is committed to Sanford, and Bargelow has, Stephen Bargelow has multiple schools that he can choose from. But they've been doing this for, a long time, and, I got some of the players of the year behind me as well, but they put in that work, and, they reap the benefits of that.
And do we have Steven? Where's he at?
Where's Bargelow?
All right, so what are your just expectations for this season from this group? Having experienced a lot of success the last few years, but what are you guys looking forward to?
I think as a defensive mindset for myself, we should just keep on continuing playing at our standard, never lower the standard, want to know each week. We come together as a family. I think that's really what brought us to our goal last year and brought us to the semi-playoffs, because we just came together and we hold each other accountable each and every day.
And what's it like playing for Coach Swick?
It's amazing. It's fun. I love playing for my coach because he understands how I play. He allows us to play how we need to play in a moment, but he also corrects us for our mistakes.
And then, seeing Travis Hunter, I know you were talking about Collins Hill, but seeing him win the Heisman, knowing that he was playing for this team not long ago, how proud are you just to represent Collins Hill as one of the leaders on this team?
It's just inspiration. I'm just very proud to be able to play for this team. I feel like every single day I wake up, I'm representing us, and I'm just trying to do the best I can.
How important is it for you guys to just stay disciplined throughout the season, no matter how good or bad you're doing, to stay humble and to avoid complacency?
It's very important. Our coach, defensive head coach, Corey Beck, he always says keep a cool head, next play, and we should just keep it moving. As a DB, as myself, and as our DB staff, we go 1-0 each play. Each play, next play, moving on to the next thing, and we just keep on going.
All right, let's hear from Atticus real quick. Atticus, describe the team chemistry.
The team chemistry is extremely important for us. A lot of us have been playing since we were freshmen, even beyond before that as youth. So we've really watched each other grow up as young men on the football field and off the football field. So I think it really helps us each week as we go on Friday night, because we play for each other.
What about Sanford's football program was appealing to you when you visited there?
What was really appealing was that you get the best of both worlds, the academic side and the athletic side. Yeah.
And then just what's been maybe a highlight of this offseason?
I really got to watch some of the young kids really just sprout. For example, Ja'Cory Hunt, he's a young receiver. I really got to see him just sprout as a young man on the football field and off the football field, so that was really cool to see.
And what are some individual goals that you want to achieve in this season?
Really just trying to get my teammates better and become a better leader, because I haven't been as vocal as maybe I should be, so that would be a really important piece for me.
Fantastic. Well, that's all the time we have. We really appreciate it from all the Eagles and Coach Swick, obviously, and best of luck this season.
Thank you. Go Eagles.
Appreciate it. All right, there goes Collins Hill. We'll be back on the other side. Don't go anywhere.
Georgia High School Sports Daily is presented by GeorgiaConstructionCareers.com. Transform your future today. And by Smart Local 85. Sheet metal is a smart move.
Welcome back into Georgia High School Sports Daily. It's time for the Great Atlanta Bash that's coming up on Friday. We'll have Collins Hill versus Woodward Academy. Now, both teams had pretty significant losses in the first week of the regular season. Collins Hill fell to Grayson, the defending champs, 51-3. And then Woodward Academy fell to Carrollton, 48-21. Craig, when two teams are coming off those tough losses, what's the focus for both programs going into Friday?
For sure. And Grayson and Carrollton, I believe they're both in that top 25 national. So not only are they ranked teams in Class 6A, these are some of the highest rated teams anywhere in the state. When you look at how the games played out, things couldn't be more opposite for Collins Hill after week 1 this season than last season. Last season, they were unranked. They got the win over Grayson, a very sloppy game for both teams. There were tons of turnovers, but 20-19 victory. This year, Collins Hill was ranked very high. Grayson was also, but they were up there number 4 or 5 most of the polls. And then another sloppy game. It rained a bunch, but then 51-3 didn't go in their favor. Now they're looking to pick up pieces. So last year they had a ton of momentum after that first week. This year's the opposite. In that game, it was close in the first half. It was 18-3. The game was delayed. It was raining. But really, it was the Collins Hill offense that didn't have any answers. Defensively, they did a good job hanging with Grayson, but when the offense couldn't get past midfield, they actually ended the game with just 9 total yards of offense. So that's how much pressure was put on their defense. I don't think you can write Collins Hill off this season, but I think it's just one of those games where the matchup was not in their favor. The offense dealt with some issues. The quarterback got banged up after taking some of these hits, and they just were unable to get that rhythm. This week, I think they'll have more success running the football, which is what they want to do. And the key is just going to be controlling the ball in time of possession and taking pressure off that defense.
Well, Grayson getting 51 points, it's obvious that the defense had bright spots, right? But the fact that they were out there so long on the field, they got tired, and Grayson has a lot of depth. So moving into this week, it will be important you got to give that defense a rest, right? And the offense has to get going, and the fact that they were only held to a field goal is not something that's sustainable, obviously, for the rest of the season. You had a chance to talk to head coach Drew Swick going into the season. What stood out to you about that initial conversation with him?
Well, to me, it's just how the team is just bonded together over the last few years. If you look at Collins Hill, they win the state title with Travis Hunter that year. That was where they had a team that made it to the finals, ended up losing, returned everyone, had this outstanding team, got the job done, played for the national title. But that year afterwards, where they replaced the entire team, Collins Hill took a big step down. Lenny Gregory ended up leaving, and then Coach Swick had to come in and just build back that confidence to get them to believe that they could be a state championship team. They had a pretty solid run that first year with a super young team, and then last year was where they really started to become one of the premier teams in Gwinnett County again. So I think they can find it, but this is really the first test for them after getting humbled against a team like Grayson that they played twice last year. But I think it's just offensively is where they're going to have to find the answers. The offensive line is going to have to play much better, and I'm sure that's what they've been working on all week.
Building confidence is something that Coach Swick was working on going into the season, but when you look at both teams that fell in the opening week, building up that confidence is something that you're going to want to do and reinstate with your team going into Friday. We're going to talk to head coach John Hunt of Woodward Academy coming up after the break. What are some questions you're going to be looking for answers for with Coach?
Yes, this is very interesting. I was thinking about this matchup. So Woodward Academy, they've always been a pretty balanced offense. They've had great skill players. They can pass the ball. But what Carrollton did very well was making them one-dimensional. They struggled running the ball. Part of that was because Carrollton jumped out to the early lead to see 21-0 in the fourth. So Woodward was kind of forced to pass their way back into it. That led to a big-time performance by Blake Stewart. But then when you look at Collins Hill, what's the strength of that defense? It's stopping the run. So to me, Woodward's going to have to find that balance. They obviously don't want to get far behind early, but being able to both run the ball and take advantage of those speedy weapons they have like Blake Stewart, they're going to need to be balanced in their attack this week. But they are going up against a Collins Hill team that really specializes on that defensive line, led by Deuce Gerald's, one of the best defensive linemen in the country.
Craig, we were talking before Corky Kell Dave Hunter Classic. You had the chance to participate in that big event, but you said that the game didn't necessarily go in y'all's favor. When that starts off your season, for you and your team, what was the biggest way that you were able to bounce back from that and not let it affect you? Yeah, so that year we were just coming off a semifinals run where we ended up losing to Parkview. Caleb King was the running back. That was our only loss of the season. So we're heading into my senior season now. We played Camden County. That was the first time Walton had ever played Camden County, and we got absolutely clubbed out there. It was like 47-7, something like that. Maybe one of the almost as big as the loss this year to McEachern. But afterwards, you realize it's just one game. You look at how things didn't go your way. I feel like in both of these cases, it wasn't the fact that they just were overwhelmed with the other team's athleticism. I just think it was that early rhythm and then some vulnerabilities when you're playing a great team. Playing a team like Carrollton, any possible miscue they're going to take advantage of. The turnovers were way too much for Woodward. I think Carrollton ended that game with a blocked punt, 2 fumble recoveries, an interception. So just the turnovers, those are things that they can clean up that are going to benefit them. But when you have a game where everything just seems to go wrong, you just have to put it in the rearview mirror and try to redeem yourself. A team that really actually did that better than anyone was Norcross under Coach Maloof. That year they won back-to-back. They won the state title. They returned everyone in 2013, and then they played a nationally televised game against a team from Florida. I forgot who it was, but they ended up, Booker T. Washington. They lost on national TV 56-0. Everyone was panicking. They said this team isn't going to go anywhere, and then they ended up turning it around and making it all the way to the state championship and winning again. So they just have to put it in the rearview mirror and get better this week. Both teams looking to put that week one in the rearview mirror for sure. Quickly, before we had to break and before we talk to Woodward Academy head coach John Hunt, who is your pick for who you're going with on Friday? I think I'm leaning a little towards Woodward in this one, just because I think offensively they're a little more healthy. I don't know the quarterback situation for Collins Hill, but when they only managed to get 9 yards against Grayson, I feel like Woodward had some more bright spots offensively, and if they can spark the big play and figure things out, they might have a little more experience and be able to win that. Woodward Academy also will have home field advantage on Friday, which always helps the situation as well. Coming up after the break, we'll hear from head coach John Hunt on his Woodward Academy's program. Don't go far.
Customer service is everything in our industry, and one thing our clients love is when they call Breda, they get a live representative. At Breda, you get the attention you need and deserve right when you call in. Your appointment gets scheduled right then and there, and you get a specific time, no window of arrival. Our staff are your neighbors. They know what's going on in your community, and they're invested in doing it better.
Breda, Breda, no need to be afraid of bugs.
Dang, where you get this car?
You need to join the union.
The union?
Absolutely. You can get 10 of these.
Union construction workers earn the highest wages with the best benefits and the most protection in the construction industry. Find your career in construction. Go to GeorgiaConstructionCareers.com and start your future today.
A journeyman with Local 85, when you turn out, you can be hitting 6 figures.
Hey, I have your back, you have my back. We're gonna do this together. We're one for all for one.
College just wasn't for me. Let's look into actual career jobs that wouldn't take college, where I wouldn't, lose money and all that. Instead of losing a lot more money at the end, why not make money and make more money at the end?
What happens after you graduate? Will you go to the next level? Will people have your back in the heat of battle? Will you still train like a champion in the pursuit of greatness? You will when you become an IBEW electrical worker. Join our team. Visit IBEW613.org. What happens
Welcome back
after you
into
graduate?
Georgia High School Sports
Will you go to the
Daily
next
alongside
level?
Craig Sager. I'm
Will people
Georgia
have your
Chambers.
back?
We're very excited to welcome in a special guest. Joining us now is Woodward Academy head coach John Hunt. Coach, how are you doing today?
I'm doing well, thank you.
Thank you so much, Coach. Well, starting off, after falling to Carrollton in the season opener, what was your message to your team to help them shake off this first loss of the season?
Well, obviously, that was a disappointing way to start our season. Certainly, Carrollton is a very good team. They always are. They're deep. They're athletic. They're long, and they're going to be a handful for anybody. But we certainly did not go out there and play our best. I told our kids at halftime, it was almost like a tragic comedy of errors across the board, and everybody took their turn. Young kids, seniors, juniors, everybody took their turns, and obviously it was just a real poor outing for us. But we had a lot to do with it. But certainly, so did Carrollton.
It's still early in the week, but defensively, what's been the focus for you guys heading into Friday's matchup?
Well, still trying to find that combination of players. We've lost a couple, really productive players on the defensive side of the ball, and we have to share so many players, both offensively and defensively. And early on, we kind of plug them in there where we think they're going to be, but it doesn't always work out that way. We just got to find that right combination of players to find the best productivity for us. And hopefully this week, we'll be able to find that combination and the players step up and play a little bit better.
And Coach Hunt, I want to ask you about Blake Stewart, who had a big game against Carrollton, 5 catches, 144 yards. We've talked about him before. He's a 5-sport athlete, pretty incredible, just what he's meant to the Woodward program and athletics as a whole. But what did you see from him in that game? How could he help spur his teammates forward?
Well, he's doing pretty much about everything now. He is a pretty phenomenal athlete. Obviously he's being recruited as a DB, and I'm sort of an offensive-minded guy, but he is so talented. I literally think he can play both ways if he wanted to at the next level. He's that talented. He's got a little savvy to him on the offensive side of the ball, great hands. He's long, and he has speed, too. And so, we're going to try to obviously get him the ball as much as possible, but we've got some other capable guys at receivers. We want to try to spread it out and balance it, too. But he has done everything we've asked as coaches on both sides of the ball, and we hope that continues.
And then you're talking about how Carrollton's a very deep team. Defensively, I feel like they're loaded on the line, in the secondary, linebackers as well. You're going against this Collins Hill team. They've got a lot of talent on that defensive line also. They're good at stopping the run. How important is it going to be for your offensive line to just clean up maybe some of the mistakes you saw week 1 and be able to establish the run?
That would be good. The biggest, obstacle last week was obviously ourselves. If we clean that up, then I hope, we run the ball a little bit better. However, just as you mentioned, Collins Hill's got a nice returning front. 2 of the guys in there are just fearsome guys and strong and powerful, and they take control of that line of scrimmage. So a year ago, they ate us up pretty good, but we were real young, starting 4 guys for the very, very, actually that was their second game ever against Collins Hill, and it was ugly. Hopefully this year, those guys who are returning for us up front can take that experience from last year and build upon it and play a little bit better. If we can somehow, play to a draw up front in the line, I think we're going to be okay. But that's going to be a challenge for us.
Woodward Academy will be at home this Friday. What's your message to your community to really come out and hopefully give your team that edge?
I'll tell you what, our fans and our support here is tremendous. If you haven't been to a Woodward game on Friday night, you really need to come. It's a phenomenal atmosphere. The students show up, the parents show up, and they do bring a lot of energy for us. And we're going to need that extra something against a very tough Collins Hill team. So we look forward to it.
And then after Friday, Woodward will go on to face two road programs. What are you looking to see out of Friday to give your team that confidence going into a tough road schedule?
Well, yeah, these first three games don't get much better. They were rough for us last year, starting out with a 0-3 start. We try not to look that far ahead. Really kind of speak to the kids about trying to get better every single week and ultimately be playing our best in the latter part of the season. Obviously, after last week, there's nowhere to go but up. But hopefully, we'll play better this week. And then once we get that by this week, we'll turn our sights to Marist on the road the following week.
From last year to this year, having a tough schedule early on in the season, how do you feel like that impacts your program to be ready for region play?
Certainly, if we come out of it healthy and not get beat up, then certainly I think it will help us. As a matter of fact, I think it did help us last year, for example. We were able to win the region, against, at that time, an undefeated Decatur team. And then we played a strong Lovejoy team in the first round, and we had to come from behind a 2-score deficit and score with 30 seconds left on the clock to win that game. And looking back, I really do think those tough games early, enabled us to play, a little bit, I guess just better and down at the end for us. I certainly hope the same thing occurs here. Again, when we play these big 6A teams and they're massive, we stretch probably about 53 kids or something like that. Carrollton's stretching about 100. I don't know how many, Collins Hill got a stretch, so stretch about 100. And, my whole key is we play every team to win. We don't try to save our players from injuries, save them for the region play or anything like that. We just hope we go out and compete and try to get better and hopefully be healthy when we get into region play. And if we are, after those three games, then I think that'll help us with our region run.
And then Coach Hunt, Zayden Young had a touchdown reception in this last game. He's a guy that has seen some opportunities in previous seasons, but heading into his senior year, what are you looking forward to seeing with his opportunity this year?
Actually, Zayden has proven, that he can make some big catches in traffic and everything like that. He played last year. He's probably our, I guess you want to call it the 3 or 4 receiver last year. And he played very intelligent young man, and he played all our different positions. But he was kind of, stuck a little bit behind Josiah Abdullah, who was a senior last year for us. And whenever Josiah got hurt or what have you, Zayden stepped in and just had some big games for us. And he's proven that for us in the past. And he made a couple big catches for us last week. Did drop one. And I'm sure, knowing Zayden, that's not going to happen again. But we look for big things out of Zayden as well.
And then, Coach, week one, we saw Carrollton was able to take advantage of some of the miscues, the comedy of errors, as you described it. But how did you feel like your team did in terms of tackling, and how do you work to eliminate the big play against Collins Hill?
That's a good question. In terms of the tackling, as I mentioned before, we're a little 3A, in size school playing in 5A. So we have what we have in terms of players, and we try to manage them in practice so we don't bang them up too much. And that's a double-edged sword. We don't tackle in practice to the ground because we can't afford to lose anybody. We do a bunch of different tackling circuits, but it doesn't, replace live action. We missed a boatload of tackles in our scrimmage against GAC, which was really disappointing. Got a little better in versus Carrollton, but that's something that just will need to continue to improve for us to be good. And if we do get them down and keep Collins Hill in front of us and make them drive the field, we keep preaching to our players, keep them in front of us, make them drive the field. We'll make a play at some point in time, and to make that stop. So hopefully we can tackle and keep them in front of us.
We're looking forward to the Great Atlanta Bash on Friday at Woodward Academy. Thank you so much, Coach Hunt, for joining us today.
I appreciate you for having me. Thank you.
And coming up after the break, we still have volleyball rankings to get to. Don't go anywhere. We'll be back right after the short break. Welcome back into Georgia High School Sports Daily. Before we get out of here for the day, we want to share the love to some volleyball. We are going to go through the rankings, and there's so much talent within the state of Georgia for volleyball. Starting off with Class 6A, got two powerhouses at number 1 and number 2, Walton and Alpharetta, respectively. Alpharetta has a big game tonight against Pope. Craig, what stands out to you about these two great programs?
Yeah, so Walton and Alpharetta, they both have new coaches this year. They haven't really taken a step back. They're going to play this tough schedule. Both the new coaches are familiar with the program and have coached the girls in not only the offseason, but in some of these travel leagues. To me, the Class 6A ranking's interesting because Walton moved up to number 1 after its big win over Pope. They've been able to continue to hold on to that spot. As for Alpharetta, they had the loss to Cartersville. They seem to have bounced back very well from that. They've won 6 straight, but now this is a big test against Pope, a team that is up there as in the conversation of who is the best program in the state. A team like Buford, this is a school that has won volleyball state titles in the past, but never in the highest classification. They're 5-0. I see them as a very strong contender this year. Etowah, they lost their season opener to Alpharetta, but they have not lost since. Norcross has some of the best talent on any team in the classification. They just haven't made that state championship run. So there's a lot of potential in this group. But I think Walton and Alpharetta, what they do in the next couple weeks, that would be the big development.
And Alpharetta was ranked nationally in the preseason polls going into this season, but just like we've seen with football, it doesn't necessarily mean like how you're ranked going into the season. It's what you're doing once season starts. So you kind of got to forget about those polls going into it and focus on the here and now.
Yeah, and they replaced, I think, 5 D1 signees from that team last year. So they have some other girls on this lineup that are star-powered talent. I mean, they've been able to be 12-1 this season, but the whole lineup for Alpharetta looks differently. When you lose an Abigail Lee, the reigning Gatorade Player of the Year, a lot of college commits that have played multiple years together, they're still working some things out.
Moving down to Class 5A, number 1 on this list, Pope. Not surprising there. We saw Pope and Walton play in the Backyard Bash, and it was a big event. A lot of people came out to it. When you look at this list, what jumps out at you?
Yeah, well, I still think Pope is the team to beat, just with Alpharetta leaving the classification. But what's interesting is Pope also fell to Cartersville. So Cartersville really has something special going on this year. A team like Milton, you see them at number 8 right now. Milton is hovering around 500. They're a very dangerous team also. They have been able to beat some quality top 10 teams. They've also lost some close ones, but they're going to be in that 25-20, 25-22 range every set. They've been right there. Johns Creek, that's another dark horse in this classification. Woodward's always talented, and then Sequoia, they're going to be in that same region as Pope.
Moving to Class 4A, you mentioned Cartersville, so I want to give you an opportunity to talk more about this team and just the powerhouse that this team is proving to be already this season.
Yeah, so this is the first time Cartersville has ever been number 1 in a volleyball poll, and it's for good reason. They are 9-0. They have so many quality wins, none more so than beating Pope and Alpharetta back-to-back. And then they have Aubrey Barrett. She is a multi-year starter. She's a senior now. She had 527 assists last year. She's off to a great start this year. And so that's important because she's going to get her hands on the ball almost every single possession for Cartersville. She's been able to set up her teammates very well. And this is a formula that has helped them take down the top competition. So I just feel like at 9-0, they've earned number 1. But then Pace Academy, they've only played 2 matches into their season. They're off to an undefeated start, and obviously you can't count them out. I just really wanted to credit Cartersville after those 2 huge wins. I just feel like it would be a disservice to not put them at number 1.
With these rankings, we have a couple classifications with new number 1s, and one of those is within Class 3A. Oconee County moving up to that number 1 spot. Jefferson falling to number 3. Why did you make this switch, Craig?
Yeah, Jefferson had lost some matches recently. I thought Oconee County just had a slightly better resume. The jump wasn't too high, just going from number 3 to 1. Calhoun's continued to win, but this is a wide open classification. That region in particular with Oconee County, Jefferson, and Cherokee Bluff, I feel like they always end up beating each other. You got Richmond Academy, they rose 1 spot. Chesapeake's been around number 4 the whole season, and then Sandy Creek, this is what happens pretty much every year with them. They're going to challenge themselves so tough in the non-region. They're going to be maybe even below 500, but then once they get into the playoffs and once they get into the classification, they always make a run.
Class 2A, not a lot of movement there. Morgan County still at that number 1 spot. Class A, we have Elite Scholars Academy bumping up to number 1, and they had a lot of talent on last year's team, had a lot of success, and looking to do the same this season.
Yeah, so I've been covering volleyball for several seasons now. Elite Scholars Academy was always right there on the edge, but then they'd fall in the state championship. Last year was the first time they got the job done. They actually dominated in their run to the state title, and now they're off to a great start in this title defense. defense they are well established. And then we got one more classification in the private I want to talk about. Lovett going to 5-0. They took over number 1. Hebron Christian lost a recent match to East Jackson, who is actually ranked pretty high in our Class 5A. They're an outstanding team, but Hebron took one step down to number 2. And then there's a huge match tonight. It's going to be Lovett against Midtown. Midtown is a team that has made the quarterfinals in Class 5A the last few years. And I feel like this is a good top 10 matchup and a big test for Lovett, who has a very young team. I'm talking freshman star power on this Lovett team, but their 5-0 start and their potential, I'm believing in what they're doing.
In addition to Lovett and Midtown, again, we have Pope and Alpharetta coming up tonight at 5:30. Great matchups across classifications here tonight. Tune in tomorrow. We'll be sure to talk about some of these big matchups and how it goes for these programs. Thank you so much for joining us of another edition of the Georgia High School Sports Daily. We'll see you tomorrow.